Palisade Radio is brought to you by First Majestic Silver Corp., one of the world's purest and fastest growing silver mining companies.
Welcome back to another episode of Palisade Radio. This is your host, Colin Cattell. And on the line with us today is Brad Cooke. He's a professional geologist and has about 40 years of experience in the mining industry. Most notably, he founded Endeavour Silver Corp., which hit in excess of $1 billion market cap just very few years ago. One of the fastest growing silver companies. Brad, welcome to the program.
Thanks for inviting me on.
You know, we're recording this on Tuesday, January 19th, and gold is steady, silver's up a little bit. And as we record this, the stocks, the associated stocks represented by the HUI is down by about 6%. It's a pretty catastrophic day, and that really underlies the market we've been in the last few years. It's been a treacherous market. Brad, just some general discussion on the market. You know, have you seen this before in your 40 years of experience? Is this a normal happening?
Well, I wish it wasn't normal, but yes, I have actually seen this several times. Typically on a spike down capitulation in any market, especially the broader markets, it turns into a liquidity event where people just sell anything because they need cash, either to cover margin or for safety, or they're just afraid. I mean, not that I've fielded a lot of calls in the recent weeks, but the very few calls that I have had were from shareholders very concerned about what's going on. They don't understand why their hedge against disaster, gold and silver investments being a hedge against the broader markets, why those hedges go down in value short term as well, and that's simply a function of markets looking for liquidity. So yes, we've seen it before. We're seeing it again. It's usually the hallmark of a bottom of a market. So I'm hoping that we don't have to put up with much more of this. By the end of January, I wouldn't be surprised if not only the precious metal sector, but the broader markets turn around and start resuming their upward course again.
Brad, I don't know about you. A lot of our listeners are worried about a potential crash in the general markets, kind of like what happened in 2008. And I'm no expert in the space. I know a lot more about mining, but I do remember that when that crash happened, it really dragged the mining stocks down. Now, at that time, the mining stocks were in a much better shape than they are now. It's hard to imagine them going down much further from here. Is that something that worries you, though, if we do see the Dow have a severe correction?
Well, the Dow has had a severe correction, and so I think there is a parallel between 2008 and today, except in 2008, the entire correction was compressed into 6 months. And here we've been looking at the broader stock markets compressing now for most of a year, certainly Shanghai, and the precious metals markets. This marks the 5th year of correction for the precious metal stocks. So I think it's just like 2008, except stretched out over a much longer period. I still hold the view that such liquidity events as we're experiencing right now typically mark the bottom.
Brad, can you tell us a little bit about the story of you founding Endeavour Silver Corp? I know that our listeners are keen on listening to stories that are marked by such success, and we'll also touch on another company that you're working on now, but I'd love to hear the quick story on Endeavour.
Oh, by all means. I'm a geologist, obviously. I've been in the business since 1976. I went back for a master's degree in 1980, graduated in 84, worked as a consultant in the 80s, and basically started Canarc in 1987. It was primarily an exploration company all the way up until the last year when we decided to focus on near-term production for the company. And in around 2002, 2003, at the bottom of the last market cycle, by the way, or just coming off bottom, I had the idea that with gold on the move and silver still flat on its back at $4.50 an ounce in 2002, that was a good time to have a silver company. Actually, I had proposed to the Canarc board that we turn Canarc to silver, and I at that time had both the board and the shareholder base totally focused on gold. So they basically said no. And because I wasn't doing anything with my time, we had elected to just go into a quiet period for Canarc at that time. I said, well, look, I need to do something, so I'm going to start a silver company. And And the Canarc board basically said, well, if you're going to do that, then I think we'd like to be involved. Why don't we become a shareholder through the seed stock? So Endeavour was basically seeded by three groups, of which Canarc was one. And we got our start in 2003 with basically myself and my COO, Godfrey Walton, with an idea to go to Mexico and seek out strategic silver and gold assets before the price of silver took off. At that time, the stock was a 10-cent company, shell company, no assets to speak of, $300,000 in working capital, mostly our own money. Fast forward to today, and we've built a real and growing silver mining company out of Endeavour very quickly. We acquired, refurbished, and expanded three historic mines in Mexico. We've now made a bona fide new virgin discovery, a grassroots discovery in Endeavour called Terranera, that we hope will become our fourth mine. And even though Endeavour's market cap peaked at north of $1 billion in 2011 and the stock price at over $13, the correction since 2011 has been harsh on everybody, and Endeavour did not escape that, obviously. But we have a good, strong company, 1,700 employees, 1,000 contractors, very strong revenue base, and growth opportunities. So I've been through these cycles before, where I feel right near the bottom of this particular cycle, and the next upwave, 3 to 5 year upwave in commodities, should be very, very rewarding for people who position themselves now.
Great. Thank you for that, Brad. And you were just discussing Canarc Resources, which, just a little background on that, you helped to find in 1988. You're now the chairman of Canarc Resources, and it's been a pretty big week. Despite bad market conditions, Canarc's just put out a PEA on a new project, and I want to start by structuring the conversation around the type of projects that are financeable right now, and that's why I find this project to be exceedingly interesting. It's going to cost less than $10 million to put into production, and while it's a small-scale production, it's nothing that should be overlooked. It's a very profitable operation. Brad, tell us a bit about Canarc.
Sure. So strategically, we actually started 3 years ago looking for more advanced or in-production projects to make that transition from explorer to producer. We didn't have a lot of success in early attempts to acquire such projects, but this acquisition of the El Compas mine in Mexico, a dormant but fully permitted mine, right on the outskirts of a famous mining center, Zacatecas, that was consummated in the third and fourth quarter of last year, and that really got us, I think, going in the right direction. Kathleen was able to secure a long-term lease on a government-owned processing plant less than 20 kilometers away from the El Compas mine, so then we didn't have to raise the money to build a plant. We already had one ready to go, and so the real virtues of the El Compas mine for Canarc are that it will now transform Canarc from explorer to producer this year, subject obviously to financing. But with the mine being fully permitted and the plant already being built and permitted, the capital and time needed to go to production is a very short period of time, measured in months, not years, and a very small amount of capital, less than $10 million. So I think that even though it's a bite-sized project, it'll produce about 18,000 ounces of gold equivalents per year for 7 years. It's a great project for Canarc to get started on.
Yeah, and that's great. And just to highlight some of the numbers that I saw in the PEA, you're talking about a total cash cost of gold equivalent ounce at well under $600. In fact, it's quite close to $500 per ounce. And that's a hard project to find. So congratulations to your team on putting something together that's certainly financeable in this environment and profitable. Where does a company, though, with a mine of this size go moving forward after successfully meeting production? Maybe there's exploration upside, and what about future acquisitions?
Well, clearly we think in terms of long-term growth opportunities for the company. So assuming financing and construction this year and the start of production, then we would turn our attention to two things, primarily exploration on the existing properties. We have almost 3,000 hectares, that's over 7,000 acres in the Zacatecas area, and there are a number of defined drill targets that have never been tested. So we have some opportunities right beside the mine to find more ore. That's, I think, priority number one. Priority number two is that we have knowledge of several stranded resources owned by other junior companies in Zacatecas who will never develop them. They're too small or too deep or what have you to try and build their own mine and mill. But in terms of trucking ore to an existing plant, we think those could be pretty interesting opportunities, acquisition opportunities for Canarc to look at potential expansions in the future.
Okay, and Brad, I want to end with an open-ended question for you, and that's, after looking through several cycles that you've had, you're a veteran to the mining space. What do you say to people that are just plain scared at this point or dejected because great stocks, even like Canarc, are teetering around a 52-week low? What do you do in the past when it gets close or at the bottom in order to stay in the game and keep your head straight?
So I'll wax philosophical for a moment here. There's lots of famous sayings from Wall Streeters on what to do in tough markets like this. Buy when there's blood in the streets. Buy low, sell high. But it all comes down to individual investors' priorities and liquidity, cash, and their investing goals. Canarc is, I think, a great way to enter the gold and silver business, and this is certainly a good time, but don't expect a turnaround in days or weeks. I'm talking about months to see finally the other side of this broad valley correction that we're in, and that's the period of time that Canarc wants to transition from explorer to producers, so that when we see metal prices on the uptick and our stock price on the uptick, we're driving the boat. That we've already done what we had to do. We're not just promising to do something. We'll have already delivered, and we'll start seeing rising cash flows, which funds more exploration, more acquisition, more growth. And this is like setting the stage for us right now. We think that from a company point of view, these next few months are the time to set the table and prepare for dinner. And I would, as an investor, would say the same thing. That if you have the means and the interest, this is the time to get ready, to start positioning yourself.
Well, Brad, always a pleasure having somebody with the expertise that you have on the program. That's Bradford Cooke. He's a geologist. He's the CEO of Endeavour Silver and also the chairman of Canarc Resources. If you'd like to find out any more information about either of those, it's edrsilver.com or canarc.net, and we'll put the links to that in the summary of the video. Brad, thank you so much for coming on the program.
My pleasure, Colin.
Think you understand the junior mining sector and you think that the participants in the mining sector, junior mining sector, are good people and kind people, hit the bid.
And the world is always going to need raw materials. It's going to need copper and gold and nickel and so forth.
Totally destabilized. Hey, Troll, did you hear what's going on in Yemen, or are you too stupid?